always fun to get to know who people really are behind what you might see when you're out at an event. Ben Cates next up on Who is Ben Cates? We've done Who is Bryson Gordon, so we'll hit the trifecta. I guess it's not a trifecta, a duo of people who I've known that have covered high school sports that I've interviewed people with. So, what got you interested in sports? Was there like a moment where you were like glued to sports?
Yeah, Bob, thank you for having me, by the way. It was something that sports was just something that I loved as a kid, just like so many kids. Um, from a really young age, we got the Greensboro News and Record. That's where I'm from, just like Bryson. And it was a lot of mornings and afternoons where I would read, especially about baseball, anything about Cal Ripken Jr. that I could get my hands on, and I'd make cutouts and you know paste them, put them wherever, and still have all those things. And so I was just really attracted to sports writing and newspapers in particular from an early age, and that carried on into adulthood. I really didn't know what I wanted to do in college. I started out at Liberty, and then went to a Bible college in North Carolina for about a year and a half. And my dad's a pastor. My mom's was a Christian school teacher before she retired, and so studying the Bible was something I wanted to do, but then really wanted to write, and I didn't really know what that meant for me, but I just came back to journalism and to sports writing, and it was really influential to me when I was a kid. And so that was something I wanted to do in adulthood too, and was lucky enough to get a job at the News in Advance in the early 2010s. And my career just kind of, I just was happy there, and doing all that. So it has been an interesting ride.
Now, when you were going to school and doing those classes, was everything in person or was there any virtual?
Yeah, none of the virtual was a big thing until I really got to grad school in 2008, 2009. Was things really started to take off there, and so I actually did work as an adjunct professor as well over the years, and so that was something that was really fun, and just to kind of watch the evolution of that online stuff working out.
How much has virtual changed the world of journalism?
Oh man, I mean, the Washington Post just
Right.
pretty much shuttered its sports department. It, with been this rise of with so many athletic teams and programs um, going in house with a lot of things beyond just sports information work, and having their own in-house departments, and then the rise of AI is it's been it's changed, and it's crippled in a lot of ways what traditional journalism is. And so a lot of people are trying to a lot of organizations are trying to you know revolutionize, I guess, and keep up. But it's a dark time, I think, for journalism and for sports journalism right now. If you're lucky enough to have a job, and in today's climate in sports journalism, you should probably keep it, and work on your craft and try to be as good as you can.
Yeah, not trying to get dark or political here, I promise. You're familiar with the website The Athletic, correct?
Correct.
Is that helpful or hurtful, you think, to newspapers?
I really came down on hard on the non-athletic side of things for a long time, simply because when that site started, its purpose was they let it be known that their purpose was to put traditional newspapers out of business. And so when it was bought, by the New York Times, I think a lot of people, who were on the side of traditional newspapers kind of rejoiced in that. Um, but the New York Times, for instance, went the other way and laid off a lot of good sports reporters too.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's a real challenging time, I think, for journalism. Um, I, I still love it. I love it with my whole heart, and um, you know, was laid off from the News in Advance in October, and am still trying to get back into the business now. So it's something that I still have a passion for.
I remember growing up as a kid, I got the newspaper called the National for a few times. It was a sports newspaper. I mean, literally, it was all about sports. Mike Lupica, Frank DeFord, all those people wrote in it. And then, I cannot fathom a world where we don't have, sports books. I love just a good book about sports. But it
Yeah.
seems like now more people are into the documentaries, the Zoom interviews, whatever, than actually sitting down to read a good. I mean, to me, my favorite sports author is John Feinstein, and
Mm.
I think it's hard to beat John Feinstein's writings. But unfortunately, with the way the world is going in terms of the youngsters out there, I don't think writings are as craved as they were when you were sitting down with the Greensboro newspaper and so on and so forth.
No, I mean, all you have to do is pick up a sports anthology book at your local bookstore, look through it,
Yep.
and it's amazing. I love a lot of old writers. I love going back to the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and reading eh, just decades of really strong sports journalism. I think it is probably something that a lot of younger sports reporters don't do, and they probably should, because if you want to be as good as you can as a writer, which I always wanted to do, you got to read good writing. And so, yeah, I surround myself with books all the time, and a lot of them are sports books as well.
Do you have a favorite
Um, oh goodness, a
or
favorite sports book?
favorite sports book or favorite sports writer? Either way, I'll give you an
Oh
out.
man, I mean, there's
Right.
so many guys that I appreciate. I don't, um, and there are a lot of guys still working that I appreciate
Right.
too. Um, but yeah, I've
It's a tough question on the
borrowed.
spur of the moment.
I've yeah, I mean, I've went through a lot of times where if it sounds odd as a writer, but it's true. I mean, you have to not only develop your own style, but you
Sure.
have to at times borrow from other writers throughout your career, or take an idea and expound on it and make it your own. And I don't think you're I think your best sports writers are going to tell you, yeah, I totally borrowed this idea from that guy, or took this from that person, or learned this phrase from that person and kind of made it into my own. That's what we do. And so I personally just kind of um, took a lot from other people here and there, and even beyond the sports world, and tried to make my own voice out of that. And if you do that long enough, you find your own voice. And um, you know, there's nothing like, I think, as a sports writer, when you get to that point where you're extremely comfortable as yourself,
Right.
and you have your own style. And um, you keep trying to perfect that style. And but I just came to a point in my career in the past probably 5 or 6 years where I felt really good about who I was as a writer.
Well, and you're a very good writer too, very descriptive. And with that being said, what was the first sporting event of major note that you remember going to?
um, like, as a writer, or just as a
Just as a general person or a writer, either way.
mm,
I mean, I'm
yeah.
thinking as a general person, you talked about your love for Ripken. I'm thinking you probably either visited, I guess it was probably Camden Yards back at that point over Memorial Stadium.
Yeah, Camden Yards when I was a kid. Um, I was really lucky. I'm a huge North Carolina Tar Heels fan,
Right.
and my growing up, my uncle was sports information director at Carolina, and so I was lucky enough to go to games all the time, just drive down from Greensboro to Chapel Hill when I was a kid. And some of my, um, well, my earliest sports memories in person are being in the Smith Center for Duke Carolina games. I was in the first game ever in that was played in the Smith Center,
Okay.
and when I was a little kid. I've written about that before, and so those moments I think shaped who I became as a sports writer and just as a fan. Um, you know, um, it was the times we're extremely passionate about basketball, and you know, to where I'd get to the point where if they lost, I would be crying, you know, and um, you know, people at the Smith Center would kind of pat me on the head
Right.
and tell me it was going to be okay. I was just into it so much. I'm still into it. I've kind of changed the way that I watch basketball now. I used to just be in a fury, um, but um, over time, those you kind of grow up and you start watching it in a more critical way, and obviously being a sports journalist, you kind of just develop this thing as a fan where you're used to not cheering at games anyway, or showing emotion or whatever, so you start to watch sports differently. um, and recently I was at Camden Yards for the 30th anniversary of 21-31 for Cal Ripken.
Okay.
The Orioles came back and won that game. The Dodgers pitcher took a no hitter into the ninth inning, um, and with 2 outs in the ninth, the Orioles came back and won the game. It was probably one of the maybe the most thrilling sports event that I've ever been to. So I've been really lucky over the years.
See, I would think it's different, like when you go to a game as a kid, and or even you've been riding, so to speak, and you see the blade of grass at Camden Yards, and it's much different than you can imagine. And not trying to be disrespectful to the Smith Center, or has not being a Carolina fan, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but hardwood courts, unless you're getting to the parquet, they kind of look the same, I think, to a lot of people, to where it's tough to separate that. Does that make sense?
Sure. As I can understand that, as somebody who I still go to games at the Smith Center. I think there's a lot of poetry in that building.
Right.
But that's just because it's a place that I've always loved.
Hey, if they
Um,
renamed that, how
and
bad
and
how mad would you be if they renamed the Smith Center?
oh man, if they
Because aren't they talking
go,
about it?
well, they're talking about moving
Okay.
um, to a different location and kind of expanding campus.
Okay.
And so yeah, it would be super sad for me if that place. I've just had so many memories of being in that place. And but baseball, gosh, there's nothing like a going to a major league game, or just going to a high school baseball game. I mean, it's just, you know, I grew up playing baseball and played in high school all 4 years, and is just there's nothing like it to me. I mean, I write as there's just kind of a natural poetic sense that I get from baseball that comes out when I write about it, and so it's there's nothing like it.
I'm not a Carolina fan by any stretch of the imagination, but to me, if you take the Smith Center away and go to another place, I think it's almost, I don't want to say sacrilegious, but I think when you look at NC State and you went from Reynolds Coliseum to the major place they had now, Maryland, when they were in the ACC, went from Cole Fieldhouse to a big building. I think I get why you're doing it. I get why you're doing it. But you take away, I think, a lot of more pure memories than when the Orioles moved from Memorial to Camden. Yeah, that sucked too. But I kind of get when a pro team does it, but when a college team does it, it kind of really kills. I think a lot of more memories in my eyes.
Yeah, you take um, you take Baltimore, for instance, Camden Yards was an upgrade. A lot of people loved Memorial Stadium, but I never went there. I heard stories about it. You just walk and you go straight up.
Yep.
Like it's just Baltimore, Camden Yards is an upgrade. Was an upgrade for sure. And a lot of what I think colleges are dealing with is just the expanding landscape of
Sure.
just things, just a totally different world, and you've got to keep up. And so I understand those arguments too. There are a lot of people I think who are like me, who are just like, um, let's renovate instead of relocating.
Well, dang, when you went from Carmichael to Smith Center, I mean, at the time that was probably sacrilegious to a lot of people because Carmichael had a lot of memories, but Carmichael, if I'm not mistaken, was about, and it's still there. I think what,
Mhm.
like 5 or 6 grand to about 21 at the Smith Center. I mean, you're looking at a major capacity
Yeah,
difference.
I think one of the things of the Smith Center too is wanting to downgrade in a new facility, as far as the amount of seats, and focusing more on the more, you know,
The suites.
uh, yeah, the suites and
Yeah.
everything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and sometimes when you go, the Smith Center is so big that you're not getting the crowd for a lot of holiday games or a lot of big games. You're not getting necessarily the crowd that you want, and some of that is because ticket prices are too high.
Right.
I mean, normal people are being squeezed out, um, all across, not just college. I mean, um, just all across the board, sporting wise. I feel like I'm such a common man type of person. I picked that up, I think, from my father and from reading things like John Steinbeck.
Right.
And so when I see people being squeezed out, especially of sporting events, man, it breaks my heart.
We'll call it old school versus new school, and I'll get you a rocking chair to where you can sit on the porch with me and we
Yeah,
can yell to the kids, get off my lawn.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, sure. The kids are good though. The kids are all good.
Well, I mean, but it's the younger
Hmm.
generation because a lot of people weren't making the money then as they do now, so you didn't need the suites back in the day, in my opinion. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah. I mean, yeah. Yeah, I just feel bad for a lot of people
Yeah.
who would like to do it and who are spending a fortune
Well, you
to
can't
to
take your
go to
kid to a
games.
game. You can't take your kid
Yeah,
or your family to a game without having either to go second mortgage or hey, we might do this once, but we're not going to be able to afford it again for 6 months,
yeah,
and that's not
yeah.
fair.
No, no, and forget Disney World. I mean,
Yeah.
that's you know,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, there's an element to that, I think, where um, a lot of owners and a lot of organizations don't care about that. They don't want those
Right.
people there anyway. Baseball is, thank goodness, is one of those sports where you know, I remember, we may not be able to do this anymore, or just sparingly, when the deals are available. But I remember going. My dad and I would drive down to Atlanta, get a hotel room for a series, and one day we would splurge on seats down below, and this was 15 years ago, maybe, that were 25, $30 a piece. But
Yep.
then, the rest of the time we'd be sitting upstairs, and you could get seats for $5,
Right.
you know, and just have the time of your life. I'm an upstairs $5 seat kind of guy.
Right. It's funny you mentioned that because I remember just when I was a kid, you could go to a minor league baseball game, have box seats, which is kind of near the dugout for like $12. Go to a major league game, and if you want to sit by the dugout, guess what? It's more than $12. And I'm not just saying that because of inflation, but I mean, you're looking at probably putting a 4 or a 5 in front of that 12, at
Yeah.
least, just to sit in front of the dugout. We'll do this again down the road, but I got a question to close us out. You mentioned going to a lot of Carolina games. What's your maybe one of your biggest Smith Center memories that you were at?
Mhm. 2005, when Carolina ended up winning the national championship. Um, I had gone to. I was doing my internship in Chapel Hill, at the Chapel Hill News, which was a weekly down there at the time. And my uncle was still SID, and I went to pretty much every home game that year. And it was remarkable season to watch. But I didn't have tickets to the Duke game, and I forget why I didn't ask. Maybe I just didn't ask for one or whatever. But there was no idea from my uncle that I was going to be there, and um, maybe I shouldn't tell this, but I got in the building and and went
Statute of
to his
limitations.
office.
You're fine at this point.
Yeah, yeah. I went to his office, and you know he had given away the seats that he had. Didn't have a place for me. I was 23, maybe something like that, and so I ended up sitting in the press box, which was in a different location than it is now. Now they put the press mostly way up in the rafters, but back then it would be on the first at the top of the first level, which is great seats. And was told not to cheer, obviously, but that kind of went without being needed to be said. Um, but and I got to see a great comeback in one of the most remarkable games in Carolina Duke history. In 2005, Carolina came back, ended up winning, and um, you know it was a great moment. And then 2 years ago, my fiance got me season tickets to and that was a wonderful season too that I've written about a little bit here and there, and just for myself. And so I do a lot of writing for myself and all that kind of stuff. That's something that I've thought about putting out at some point if I ever finish it. Is just like my um, time as that season from a sports perspective, but also how close I got with my mom, who I went to a lot of the games with, and the things we talked about, the songs we listened to, the moments we had, together, and when we talked about the team too. So, just a remarkable time period in my life.
That sounds great. We'll definitely talk about that next time. I always love to go behind the curtain and know the guy that we had read for so long, who he is. Ben, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. Appreciate it.